Good evening. This is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, meeting of the Town of Berlin Planning Board. As a preliminary matter, please note this meeting is being recorded and some of the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that the other folks may be able to see you. The Canadian flag t-shirt you decided to wear tonight, or anything you intend to or not screen share on your computer, will be captured, and the recording will be possibly shared amongst your neighbors as a TikTok video. This is Tom Sanford, Chair of the Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members of the board are present and can hear me prior to me calling the meeting to order. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jay Teach.
Here.
Timothy Wheeler.
Yeah.
Carolyn McDonald.
Here.
Thomas Andrew.
Here.
With a quorum of the board present, I call this meeting to order at 7:34 p.m. Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. This is an open meeting of the planning board being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Specific information and general guidelines for the remote participation by members of the public can be found on the Town of Berlin website. The governor's order suspends the requirement of an open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows and encourages us to participate remotely. For this meeting, the planning board is convening using the Zoom platform as posted on the agenda, which includes links for the public to join this meeting. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda after their concluding remarks. I will invite each board member by name to provide any comment, questions, penetrating insights, and/or motions. Please hold all your insights until your name is called. Board members and speakers, please remember to mute your phone or computer when not speaking. Please speak clearly to ensure accurate minutes are recorded. For any response, please wait till you're yielded the floor. State your name before speaking. If board members wish to engage in conversation with each other, please do so through me to avoid multiple conversations happening at the same time. Lastly, please note that each vote in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Thank you all for your understanding and cooperation. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes of our last meeting?
I will make a motion, but I did have a question about them.
Yeah.
Well, let's take up the motion in a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Now, is there any discussion?
There is. So, Jay, you used the term balkanize the mall, and I want to know what that means.
I don't know, because I heard it and I was trying to think.
Oh, I will tell you what it means is to it refers to the Balkan Peninsula, and we can change that. We can change that if you like. The breaking up of political subdivision into little pieces that don't make any sense is what it means.
Got it.
I would use a different term. I can replace that particular one with a new one. You could replace the statement with that it should be treated as an integrity.
I think it ought to be kept. I think it's historic. I think years from now, people will look at that and think, how intelligent a comment.
Well, what if we have some residents from the Balkan Peninsula who don't find it funny?
Well, it's not I don't look at it as negative. It's just a factual way in which we were concerned about Solomon Pond being divided up into pieces.
It didn't make sense together. That's
Okay.
But if you could state it as a positive that we agree that it should be treated as an integrity. Okay.
I don't know. I kind of like leaving it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, we can leave it too. I mean, it isn't horribly obscure, but I recognize that it's also not common usage.
Yeah, I thought that was what it meant when I heard it. Yeah, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we can leave it. I mean, we know what it means now. Everybody?
I just wanted some clarification so that I knew what I was voting on.
All right. I think it's accurate.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
so we had two little items, right? On the agenda. One was some minor corrections to the drawings of,
Well, we have to vote to
Sure.
approve the minutes first.
oh, I thought we did. Okay, sorry.
No, we haven't voted yet. Are we all done with our discussions?
We are.
Everybody happy with the
I am satisfied.
wordsmithing? All right, I will ask you to vote. Carolyn McDonald, all in favor? Please say. What did the
Aye.
Canadians say? Yay, yeah,
A.
have a Molson?
Yeah.
Carolyn McDonald,
Well, aye.
All right,
Jay Teach,
all right.
Thomas Andrew,
Aye.
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Is there any other business to be discussed, mail that we need to deal with, or?
Well, there's the two issues I stuck on the agenda. One is the drawing. It was the lot line, just kind of making the lot line make more sense between Solomon Pond Road and South Street. What is it?
Whitney, I think, isn't it?
No. See if I can find the drawing. It's in the I sent the drawing around to you guys, I think.
Yeah, it took me a few minutes to even figure out what I was looking at.
It's not it.
Yeah, it's on the west side of River Road.
Yeah.
Can you pull it up? I didn't see it.
I'm gonna try to. I got kind of a crowded screen tonight because I only got one monitor. Let's see, here it is right here. Let's see. Show me. Oh, share. There's a share. There. Does that look familiar? There were two really minor changes, and I think the email I sent you guys had the text. From the email that I got describing the change. Let me see if I can dig that up. Here we go. And this one. Okay, regarding the NR we brought before both towns in August. I wanted to know a couple of typos. The first was in writing the meets and bounds description for the client. We noticed the bearing on the town line did not print. It was in the model space. So they fixed it. The second was they wanted in the prepared for box, Mall at Solomon Pond LLC by and through, added in front of E3 Realty Mass Advisors LLC. That's the only two changes. Do we need to do anything about that, or just what do we do about that? He's giving us a new drawing, basically.
So it's been submitted with those two corrections, right?
Yeah.
I would move to accept the plan as submitted with those two corrections. Did we
Okay.
had already accepted the plan and had a,
We'd
no?
already signed it, and I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
we
Yeah,
signed
yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
I
they
think at
never-
this point, yeah, we can, those are, to me, those are scrivener's errors, a little, I think we could just say we accept the corrections to the plan
In the minutes, yeah. Just
in
leave
the,
it.
yeah,
Okay.
which, go ahead.
I think that's fine, but it does raise a question as to how much latitude do we want to give an engineer to modify a plan? I mean, I don't remember engineers doing this in the past. I can understand why these guys did this. I don't think it's a problem. But I think we ought to remind them that we would just as soon they touch base with us before they record it.
Well, did they record it with those changes? Because this one we signed didn't have those changes, right?
They
Yeah,
made the
that's what I don't
changes
know.
on the plan we signed, is what I understand.
They did?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have a problem with that.
Yeah, because the signatures are on the drawing. That's correct.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, let me modify that motion and let me say, because I don't think we need to re-sign it and have that, but I think let us also send a note to say these are immaterial, but we would caution you, we would not accept this kind of process in the future.
yeah, I'd be inclined to tell them that if it happened again, we'd be inclined to let the registry of deeds know.
Well, do you
Mhm.
want me to find out first, though, whether they recorded it or not? Because maybe he is alerting us before they recorded it. Right? He may
Yeah, if you
not-
wanted to do that.
Let me find out, because he may have been sitting on the drawings and hasn't been to the registry with it.
Okay, but
I'll find out.
it's
It's a slippery slope.
a slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd be surprised. I mean, I don't understand why or an engineer would feel comfortable doing that without making note to the board that that's the action it was going to take. I mean,
Sloppy
Well, I mean, I
engineering.
think that's why he contacted us and why.
so
we
maybe
contacted
that's what he did, right?
Mhm.
Right.
That's probably
Okay.
it. He probably has not recorded it, and then he's going to record it if we say it's okay.
Okay, so let me say this, that we accept these changes, but that in the future, changes like this would require coming before the board again and re-signature, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
And then the other one here, let me call this up.
Well, we have a motion. I had a motion. Does anybody
Oh,
want to second it?
second.
All right, we have a
Okay.
motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any amplification to Thomas's wording?
Mhm.
Seeing none, I'll ask you to vote. Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
Aye.
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
Thomas Andrew,
Aye.
Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very curious about people's about this next item. They have also contacted conservation. And
So my question wasn't that operated under a special permit?
No, I don't believe so.
It wasn't.
No, it's a use that's provided for I know conservation wasn't particularly enamored with the fact that the planning board went ahead and worked with a proponent to develop a CR, but and it had a lot more leeway than probably you would have allowed.
no, it's actually a good one.
Yeah, but I mean, we sort of worked independently, which wasn't a good habit. I apologize, but
I wasn't around then, so.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's why we did it. It, to me, the passive recreation was allowed not by special permit, but by right within the CR. I mean, I can't recall anything that was restrictive in that. Was there?
I'm not really familiar. I mean, I'm only familiar with what the CR says, not with how the business was operated outside of that. Um, so, in one of the questions this person is asking, they want to know whether the location still holds a valid business permit. I mean, who would issue that?
The town clerk, Eloise,
Yeah.
could comment on whether there's they ever registered a business at that address and under a particular name.
What is it?
Eloise would like to weigh in and raise her hand. I'd be happy to hear what she has to say. Hmm. Oh, there she is. Eloise.
I would have to go back and check the records. And then,
And to the best of your knowledge, there's nothing current though, right?
I,
Right. I mean, that just,
what
You just
business are
died
you
in the-
specifically talking about?
oh, the driving range down at the
To
Rotary.
best of my knowledge, no.
So a golf course in a residential agricultural zone requires a special permit and site plan review. We don't speak to driving ranges, but active recreation not involving motorized equipment is not allowed. So if they want to consider themselves a golf course, which I would think that's what they'd try to argue, as a recreational use in a residential agricultural zone, they do need site plan approval. Yep. And
Yeah, that's what I remember too.
and a
Site plan
special
approval. Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised, but yeah, that's good. Good.
So it's allowed with only with site plan approval, right?
And special permit.
And one comes from us and one comes from the ZBA, is that right?
Both from ZBA.
Oh, okay.
And if it's a discontinued use for more than,
2 years.
well, it's a conforming use, but the business lapsed. And so I would assume that there's no carryover on the special permit. I mean, if they acquired the business and it was active at the time,
Yeah, I would agree that the special permit and the site plan would continue, but
right,
it has lapsed.
but it's been out of business for quite a while. So it seems like, and then they're not I don't think they're acquiring the business as an active business from the predecessor. They're acquiring the land, which had a use that's allowed, but they still need to go through site plan approval and special permit. That's the way
I think that's right,
yeah.
Tim. It's an allowed use, but they have to go through those two processes.
Yeah. Which isn't a difficult process. I mean, they'd have to just explain what they were going to do in terms of lighting, hours of operation, parking, and all that sort of stuff, just to
Yep.
make sure they had a clean slate and an understanding as to what they were expected to do in terms of performance. And then they have a chance to chime in.
Yeah, and practically it makes sense because there are likely going to be differences in those things from the prior use, and there are now other uses that are abutting that weren't
Yep.
there when the previous special permit and site plan review was done. So I think it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Will they be able to get that before purchasing the property, that one? Can you apply for a special permit before you own the property?
The owner, I mean, an applicant,
They could certainly have an informal conversation and find out what the board might think of such a use. And
Well, I think they could enter into a purchase and sale with a contingency that the special permit and site plan was reviewed, and that with that degree of commitment, I think one could go forward. That's the way I understand it.
yeah, I like that.
Okay. That's the only new stuff, unless, Tim, you didn't happen to get any mail off the mailbox, did you, this week? Since I didn't give you a key.
No, but Kristen sent an inquiry. Maybe Carolyn got it too. In regard to the Central Street property that Mo had.
Mm,
Oh, really?
Carolyn, I can't find my copy of that. You got something, right?
I did.
Can you hold yours up?
Let me see. So, I'd rather not actually share the email. When I asked Kristen if I could share what was in the email, she asked me not to share the actual email because it came from a lawyer. But
Okay.
she said I could share I could summarize the email.
I
So
think we need to discuss this one because this is
yeah.
pertinent.
So the land, the frontage, so it's where, do you remember a couple of years ago, that, it wasn't a church, was it a mosque?
No, that's
Behind-
Yeah, that's where we're
that's
talking.
the parcel.
Yeah. So that would be their road frontage up into where they're trying to develop. And what they're trying
Oh,
to do is apparently they say that they have title that grants an easement across the railroad tracks.
I'd like to see that.
Well, that's what I asked. So that was, so
Oh,
and they're asking the town to memorialize the easement.
Huh.
And so my advice to Kristen was have them get permission from DCR to cross it and show us the title, which they have not produced. I also noted that the same law firm that represented Highland Ridge is representing this, not the same lawyer, but the same law firm. So that certainly put some red flags up for me. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to build, it's like, if I remember the plan correctly, it's like 8 duplexes on the street side of the railroad tracks and 4 more duplexes on the other side with the well and septic on the other side of the tracks.
Isn't there only like 12, 14 acres of usable land up in that? We're talking up behind where the
Up behind Wilson's.
Wilson's was, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, actually, and they would go in also, let me think about this for a second.
Because they wanted a curb cut between Wilson's and where
And the
Jennifer.
house. The blue
Yeah.
house that's there.
right.
Yes.
I got totally confused on this one. For some reason, I picked up the notion that it was Mo's and not this piece.
No,
But the question still comes. There's no provision for multifamily dwellings in a residential zone. There's we're not susceptible right now to 40Bs. How would they propose to build this density and duplexes, which we don't allow in our bylaw either? How would they propose to move forward without changing the zoning bylaw?
a very good question. Could they do it?
Regardless of whether
Oh,
they-
an over 55?
they'd have to come to town
Oh,
meeting and get an
yeah.
overlay.
Sure, but they
Overlay.
still might do that.
So, but I mean, there's have to be town meeting action in any one of the scenarios that they might put forth.
So
First, they're
isn't our answer that the project is not allowable under the existing zoning bylaw, even if the easement is proved?
That's the way I
right.
look at
They're
it at this
right, but
point.
they're not submitting the project. They're submitting they're asking all they're do, and they've done this very carefully. First, they submitted an ANRAD, which is basically says we all agree where the wetlands are. And then they filed an RDA, which is a oh my gosh, request for determination of applicability that says, basically saying, hey, these are the things we want to do. They're outside the wetlands. Do you guys agree? And so this is like 3 years now, maybe. Over the course of 3 years, they've filed these.
Oh,
Excuse me. And now they're looking for the town to memorialize the easement. That's all they're asking for right now.
Okay. Well, then we need to have evidence of the
Right,
easement, and then the answer is simple. I mean,
Do we even have the authority to do that?
but that's not a planning board issue, is it?
no, it isn't.
No, it's a.
Whose authority would that happen under? I mean, that's
It's-
what I said
It's an
to
easement. so-
Kristen.
I mean,
How does it have anything to do with the town? Isn't it?
yeah, I would say they
Property
should send to
owner and
the,
the railroad?
yeah, I would say they should send to the, we should go back to the town administrator and say it's not a planning board issue. If they wish to establish that there's an easement, then they should send a record of the easement agreement and its recording in the Worcester Registry of Deeds.
But also, don't they need to get DCR to, I mean, DCR is the one who should memorialize that, right?
Well,
Who should recognize.
DCR owns the land over which the easement is established. So if we ask them to say, show us proof of the easement, it would have to be an easement that was granted by DCR. And that would have to be granted and it would have to be recorded.
Right.
Or granted by the railroad prior to DCR's ownership and then recognized by DCR.
And recognized by DC. Yes. Yep.
Right. And okay, so right, and that's what I advised Kristen. I'm like, they need DCR needs to tell us that they recognize the easement.
I think the thing that we need to say is to Kristen is they should send evidence, including a recorded easement. Okay, and that if DCR is not part of that, we should probably inquire after DCR. But
Mhm.
I would say that under property law, if the easement was granted by the railroad prior to its acquisition by DCR that the easement, that kind of easement, because it's an easement of necessity, it's the only way that you can access the property, that runs with the land.
Mhm.
DCR doesn't have to accept it. I mean, and I'm talking perfectly technically here. So I think the first step is they should show evidence of the easement that they have and the recording of that easement. And if Kristen wants to talk to us when she gets that, I mean, I'm happy to talk to her about it. Okay.
Yep.
But
If it was, for instance, let me say this: if it wasn't recorded before DCR's acceptance of it, that complicates things. So, I mean, let's see what they have and tell Kristen, we're happy to take a look at it. And but we can't project beyond the information we have. Okay.
yeah,
And again, I'm happy to look at that when it comes in. All right.
Carolyn, is there any plan that goes into any detail about? I mean, when you've talked about duplexes, is there a preliminary plan that's been drawn?
The only thing I've seen is what they sent to Kristen. So Kristen asked, kind of, hey, why you asking? And they sent the preliminary plan.
Did you get a copy of that?
I must have because I've seen it. I can see if I can find it.
I'm always perplexed when work gets done that gets this advanced without a discussion about the zoning restrictions on a parcel that don't provide for this type of use.
Yeah.
I
No,
I'm-
I agree with you, but
it's their
Happens
money.
frequently.
yeah, it's their money and it's down the road. I mean, what's before us is there an easement, which is not really our purview,
Right.
but we can go back to Kristen and say, ask them for a copy of the easement and evidence of the recording of that easement. And then we can take it from there. And we're happy to look at that when it comes in and suggest next steps.
But and I'm going places we shouldn't go probably, but I mean, let's say the easement's 12 feet, right? I mean, this is an easement that's 60 feet wide. How do you build a subdivision road that requires 60 feet of width, 20
Eh,
feet of pavement,
No,
an easement that's 12
I,
feet or
I
15?
I agree with you, Tim, but you know what? I have so much trouble dealing with reality. I try not to avoid with all. I try to avoid dealing with alternate realities.
Anyway, yeah, good.
Does the religious use make any difference?
Is what?
The religious use, does that supersede zoning in any way?
Yeah, but this is not a religious use.
Oh, I thought you said it was a mosque or something.
That had been a prior inquiry that was to let
Okay.
people know what
Yeah.
piece of property.
And in that case, were they planning to go across the railroad? I don't think they were.
The mosque was, yeah.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But they wouldn't have needed a subdivision road. It would have just been a driveway. And
Right.
an easement
Right.
might have sufficed.
Right. And they didn't even get that far.
No.
Right.
once they found out they were gonna have to put in a public water supply, their interest dwindled.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so I, just so we don't lose sight of it, the message back to Kristen is ask for a copy of the easement and evidence of registration of that easement in the registry, and then we're happy to talk to her when it comes in and decide next steps.
so Tim, I found the plan. I just don't know that I can share it.
No,
Okay,
I don't think you
yeah.
should.
I
Keep
don't think
asking.
it's relevant. We can take it one step at a time, and
Right.
yeah,
Right, but they're showing 24 feet wide
All
of
right.
their crossing.
Yeah, and our subdivision rules and regs call for more than a 24-foot right of way.
Yeah.
By double. at least.
yeah. Yep.
So
let's see what we have, because we don't even know
Right.
that the easement exists. So let's see what we have, and then, as I said let her send it to us, and then we can comment on those things. And what Tim just indicated might well be one of our comments.
yeah, I definitely think that that should be pointed out from the very beginning.
Well, I think from
Early
the
and
very
often.
beginning, I think we should just make the point: we need the legal facts and documents of them. Period. And
Yeah.
then let's go from there.
But
Yep.
has this actually come to the planning board, or is this what has come to the Conservation Commission you're telling us about? I haven't got anything about it, unless it was today.
It hasn't come officially to the planning board.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think this is coming to us as, if you will, an advisory board to the selectmen and the town manager. And I think what I've suggested is good advice. And as I say, when that comes in, if they want to refer it back to us for further consideration and consultation, that's great.
Yep.
Are you gonna do that, Tom, or who's gonna?
I can write her a note if you want.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean-
and copy me on it too,
Yeah.
and tell her that she can, if she replies to all when she gets the stuff in, with any further questions, we'll be happy to help her.
Yep. I'll take care of that. I want to reach out to her about some other stuff anyway.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. We want to sink our teeth into our ADU
Yeah.
guiding light and our responses.
I sent you guys kind of a summary and the detail, if you wanted to read it, of the most recent correspondence from the state regarding the ADU bylaw. Did anybody read that? Did you get it?
Yep.
I did get it,
Yep. Thank you.
and yes, it was great.
Oop, I looked for it. Hold on a second. Oh, there it is. There. So if we want to go through this, the things I noticed in it that were kind of interesting was one was about the gross floor area, which we talked about before. There was this of compliant ceiling height text added. which is not super clear because on the main floor of your house, you need to have a minimum of 7-foot ceiling. In the basement, you've got to be 6'8". And if there's like an attic room, a dormer or something where the roof kind of slopes down to maybe not all the way to the floor, the square footage used for any calculations in the building code starts at 4 feet, I think. Right, so even though they, added a little bit more detail to this, it just opens up even another level of detail that they haven't specified. I'm not sure what you do. And then there's some things in here that got crossed out and some things that got added, but the interesting one is that basements are still included, which are not included in the way real estate agents or the building code measure floor area. Right? The building code and I think the real estate industry both look at conditioned space, which means it's got to have heat. New England, anyways. Which is not usually a basement, but these guys are including the basement.
Which makes the house significantly smaller.
Well, it makes the ADU smaller, but on the other hand, it means the qualifying space in the primary dwelling becomes larger.
Sure, doubles my house.
Yeah, so in some cases, the ADU gets bigger because instead of half of a 1,200 square foot house at 600, maybe the basement makes it up to 1,800. Now you can get 900. Right?
But if you've got a 900-foot limit, and you include the basement, and it's not what we would call a habitable part of the house, it's foolish. It means that the habitable part of the house, a kitchen, bedroom, living room, if you're working on a single story, you can only have 450 feet of space on the first floor if the cellar's a comparable size.
But
I mean,
it expands the existing floor space
On the primary dwelling.
on the primary dwelling.
I think what it really does in practice is going to be to drive all the ADUs to be slab rather than basement, which is actually cheaper. It's nice having a basement in New England, right?
Well, when you think about
it freeze up and break and whatever,
a whole series, right? A whole series of infrastructure issues that suddenly have to be provided for on the ground level, right?
Is this their backdoor way of putting in handicap accessible or accessible units?
I don't really see that. I don't really see that because something's going to be accessible on the first floor, whether it has a basement underneath it or it's on a slab. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. I don't know.
Yeah, but you could jack it, if it's on a foundation, then you could make it stick up in the air 3 feet or whatever. If it's a slab on grade, you're not going to wind up putting that 3 feet in the air.
Yeah, I could get that.
I kind of doubt that's intentional because nowhere else did I see anything about handicapped access.
Right, if it was something they were trying to push, they would have emphasized it more than once.
I think so. And the slab thing, these days, you have to put in a 4-foot cross wall and insulation and all sorts of things. And you pour the concrete floor, but you would do that in the basement also, right? So the difference maybe is that you don't have to frame the floor.
Right.
Right, put all the joists and everything in. I mean, I could see spending a little extra money to do that so that you can put the water heater in the basement. You have access to where the water comes into the unit, deal with cold temperature, taking it out of service and whatever. But anyways, I think kind of doubt it's going to change from what they've got here.
Hmm.
And then we were talking about how they were, for some reason, they were going to measure the space from the outside of the exterior walls instead of the inside, which seemed very strange, but a lot of people must have questioned that and they moved it to interior. Otherwise, we'd be building units with paper thin walls, right?
The those what 6
Right.
inches overall are not going to really make or break anything one way or another.
Well,
Yeah.
your wall, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine, and I agree with you. It does obviate the possibility people would make walls too thin.
Right, but you got to meet the building code, so you got to have enough room.
Yeah,
to
you're
get-
right. That's probably taken care of anyway. You're right.
Yeah. So the next one here, lot, is interesting because remember we were questioning what's up with existing non-conforming lots for a primary structure. Are you going to be allowed to build an ADU on that property? And in the changes they made, like 4 or 5 different times, they inserted this regardless of whether the site conforms to requirements of zoning. You can see a lot of it is about area. So it seems very clear that if you have got a property that's only 1 acre instead of 2, and I think we can still enforce our setbacks, but if you can
Mhm.
put a unit in that's the right size with the right setbacks, but not enough square footage in the lot, they are going to insist that we allow that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected would be the result. And of
But
course,
for-
there are the well and septic system stuff and all of that that also apply. But
Right. And from the beginning, they've said you must conform with setbacks.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not 100% clear because it says like regardless of whether it conforms to zoning or not, but I think the setbacks show up in a few places. I think that they're going to be enforceable.
Hmm.
And we were then asking them last week about what if someone wants to put more than 1 unit, 1 ADU on a property, right? And a couple places in the document, they define a pew ADU, which is a permissible use, permitted use. So most of this is all about this permitted use, by right. But 1 is permitted, more is permitted if allowed by the town and requires special permit. That's down here somewhere. Here it is down here. See, it shows up more than one place. So if we allow multiple ADUs,
Right.
the second and more and later ones will require special permit.
that's good and that's rational, I think.
Yes, but then again, once you say that, what are the guidelines for allowing the special permit, right? If it's Richard Hanks has to decide whether to allow, Carolyn to put 2 units instead of 1 on her property, where's the guidelines?
I think that's punted. I think that's punted to the town.
Yeah,
I'd be inclined to avoid the language that allowed the second ADU on a lot in the first run, and
Just to
and
avoid
let's see what happens, and then if it's appropriate at some later time to allow for multiple ADUs on a lot, the second by special permit, we could add that to the language at a town meeting down the road. Instead
Well,
of
so you're saying we would say we won't allow more than 1. I think we're allowed to do that.
right,
Yeah.
and just go with it that way the first time at town meeting, and then if it's we just say, well, crazy. We can change it later, you know?
Yeah, I think that subscribes to my let's not deal with alternate realities
Yeah.
rule. That
Okay.
Right, there were a couple of things in your notes that you said that we get to decide, and that's one of them. The other is short-term rentals.
Yes. Yep. Let's keep going here. Oh, you notice there's this current, so that there was a bunch of kind of broadening where this applied. So a lot with a single family home on it obviously does apply, but then it got extended to current or future use. So it could be an anticipated house on that lot, but not one real one. And there's a bunch of stuff in here about different types of buildings that could be on the lot. I guess that's coming up. If we go through the order here, current or future use, how this enrollment in an educational institution. So you can't do what we did with family member, caregiver, all those kind of things. You can't do age limits like over 55.
Mhm.
You can't limit the number of occupants other than the state code, which allows a lot of people. It's done by square foot. And then they had this enrollment in an educational institution. So maybe that's for dorms or something. I don't know what that would be about. Right.
That you, I'm confused as to what, like you can't say if you're enrolled in an educational institution, you can't rent this to those people.
Oh, maybe. I was
Mm.
thinking
Mhm.
I'm only going to rent this to people who are going to my school. But
yeah, that's the way I read it, Jay.
it might make sense that nobody wants to have college students in their EDU because they know they're going to destroy it, right? Like we all did. That's what you're saying, right?
That is what I'm saying, that if you're in a college town, so it's kind of a short-term rental, it's a little longer term short-term rental, but so I'm wondering it, and so you're saying that the state is saying that you cannot restrict that, or that you can restrict that?
No, you
Cannot.
cannot. There is a list of things you cannot restrict it for, including family, being a member.
Right, the family I knew.
Right. And the other ones we've all talked about, but this is a new one that appeared in this version.
Okay.
So if you're around BC and you've got a lot and you want to throw an ADU on it, the town can't tell you it can't be rented to just college students.
I think that's it. I'm going to check it, but I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then there's this thing about zoning. There's this about the restrictions we do impose. We can impose based on this list of stuff of protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of our inhabitants. Trying to give us some guidance on what we can impose and what we can't, since there's so many possibilities.
And there'll be stuff that they didn't think of, and people will find loopholes, and
A lot, absolutely. My brother ran into someone just a few days ago who was adamantly opposed to ADUs in his Massachusetts town. And I can't remember which one. He said that they're gonna have to have either they're not going to be allowed to, or they're going to have separate metering for electricity and gas and water. But it was the opposite of what I found in the bylaw.
right. I was going to say, wait a minute, from what I read from what you sent, said the town can't require that, but a utility may.
Yes. And presumably the owner, I mean, I was thinking about it.
Hmm.
It dawned on me one day, oh, you're gonna have two different houses with two different people living in them, two different people should be
Mhm.
paying for their electricity. How do you tell them how much to pay, right?
Mhm.
So you could sub-meter inside the house and put your own tracking, you can buy
Mm.
recording devices, and then you would have to go every month, see how much electricity each one used and give them a bill, which who's going to want to do that?
Mhm.
Or you buy a double meter socket and you stick it on where the service comes in, and one wire goes in the house and the other wire goes to the EDU, and then each of the tenants get their own account with National Grid, and it has nothing to do with the landlord at that point.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
same with, if you had gas, you could have two different tanks, and same with oil. So they just the state's just making clear that you can do what you want on that, right? There's no requirement one way or the other.
And that's good.
Well,
What's
not
that?
only that there's no requirement, that the municipality cannot require that.
Right.
Right.
Unless the municipality can, unless it happens to be a municipal light and power like Hudson.
Oh, okay.
The Hudson,
Well, the utility entity can require it, but the town can, like the town of Hudson cannot, but the Hudson Light and Power can.
I think that's exactly right, Carolyn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here, multiple use. We talked about that. Floodplain applies. We can be more permissive than the state. I like this thing about annual reports. In the previous version, we were going to have to send an annual report to the state,
Yeah.
all about who applied and who was allowed and what the restrictions were and all that stuff. And now they've backed that down to, I mean, that would be a disaster, but now we just have to collect the data and make it available on request by the state.
Yeah, if they required that, they'd have to hire someone to read it.
Well, they could use AI, right?
Well, sure.
So that's all the new stuff that's in the final. This is the final version that has been released and is in force right now, I believe.
Yeah, as of what, like 9 days ago or something? Yeah.
I don't know if we received any applications. So on the timing front on this thing, we need to get our own bylaw drafted, right? We're supposed to be getting help from the state that they're going to give us some model, but I've probably, given that it's going to apply to Cambridge as well as Berlin, it's probably not going to be all that helpful to us.
Speaking of Cambridge, did you hear what they did last night? They got rid of all of their single family zoning.
Really?
That's what I heard on the radio this morning.
Why?
Not
So that
entirely
means-
sure.
That means there's no ADU law. ADU law applies to single family zoning.
Oh, is that why they did it?
Probably why they did it.
I thought it was a bit extreme.
Bingo.
Yeah, except now
Yeah,
they've opened
yeah.
themselves from the brief report that I heard, they've opened themselves up to like allowing 6-story dwellings in what has always traditionally been a residential neighborhood.
Mhm. It's the People's Republic of Cambridge.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Maybe they came up with a new name for a new zone. And they just switched all the single family over to whatever.
To a different name, huh?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
hadn't
But
heard that.
anyway,
It's
that's-
intriguing. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I heard this
Mhm.
morning. I was a little shocked.
So,
I figure there's going to be a lot of objections to this, right? And how is it going to play out? Are they going to be suing the state? The towns are going to sue the state, or what's going to happen?
Yeah.
we meet after the warrant closes.
One more time before the warrant the warrant closes on the 28th, right? Or is it the 24th?
I thought it was the 24th.
Oh, maybe, because it does usually close on a Monday, huh?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got it in my calendar. Oh, no, I have it assumed the 24th, but I think the actual date was later.
Mm,
I got an email from Kristen, I think, because I asked her about it. Let me see if I can find it.
Um, regardless, it seems that we haven't seen the state's model bylaw yet,
Right.
but I wonder if, as a start, we would want to vote this evening to place the state's model on the warrant and make it clear that we're going to modify it. And that for us to try, because the landscape keeps changing, for us to have tried to pin down the exact language that we wanted for the warrant at this meeting tonight, because we don't meet again until the warrant closes. That's my thought anyway.
Okay. Oh, it says right here, the warrant will close on February 24th, so we were right.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that puts the language in. We know we're going to modify it. We know town council's going to look at it.
Yeah.
I think the select board and Kristen are perfectly willing to allow us to play with it. We're going to get some more feedback from Jane and Central Mass. I mean, it doesn't go to
Great.
press for a while. I mean, I think if we
Yeah.
said we need our February meeting and our meeting in March to finalize it, and we'll have some language for you that's pretty clarified by, mid-March or something.
No, I agree. And plus, we could, if there are developments even beyond that,
Mm,
we have time to put in the annual town meeting an appendix that says these are the changes. So I would make a motion to the effect that we submit the state template bylaw, and that we advise the selectmen that this is likely to be modified, and that's it.
and I'm comfortable with that because I think the changes that we make will be relatively minor. I think we've got I feel a general understanding as to what of those options that we have, we'd probably pursue. And, we can just work on that as we get this. Jane thought that the state was going to issue something last week as the model. I mean, they
Yeah,
dragged.
we've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is not a problem particular to us.
No.
Lots and lots of towns have spring town meetings that are going to be affected by this.
Yeah.
But we do need to turn something in for the 24th,
Mhm.
and unless
So I had a motion on the floor that
so I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the strategy behind this?
only to say that once the model bylaw comes out, I'm happy to take a day or so to look at it and to work with maybe Jay to help to put together the amendments.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion?
So we're gonna have
So-
time between that date, between the 24th and town meeting for the hearings and anything else that's needed.
Yeah,
Right,
lot
we
of
have to
hearings
get the
and everything.
language to the select board as soon as possible.
Yep.
And then
Which-
we have our hearings and all
Yep.
of that.
Which we will do as soon as the state provides us a template.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing no more angst amongst the board members,
There's plenty of
Awesome.
angst.
Yeah.
ask you to vote to put the template or to put the language we have now, knowing full well we're going to modify it to the select board. Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
I
Thomas Andrew,
I
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, so we have that language in a format that's acceptable to select board? No?
We're waiting for the template.
we're waiting for the template.
Okay,
well,
The
if we get
motion should
template-
actually say we're going to present the state template to the select board as
But
soon
what
as
if
it's
it-
available.
What if it's not available because I still haven't gotten the template for the
FEMA?
floodplain?
Mm.
When I talked to Kristen about this Central Street issue, I can tell her what we're planning to do and see if she's got any great
what
concern.
happens if
Yeah.
the template doesn't come forth by the
Well,
24th?
I mean, I think Jay and Thomas will,
Club something
my
together?
sense is that, yeah, there's some language that we could put together or they could
Okay.
put together.
Well, the other thing is that surely the state must recognize the fact they've got to get this out because town meeting season is coming.
Yeah.
Well,
I
Maybe,
think we
you
should
know-
say we're going to submit that. That should be our vote. If it turns out the state is delayed in that, then we'll contact the selectmen and figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah. And I'll
I mean,
let,
we already have a draft that with the few changes we just went over tonight is a good starting point, right?
Yeah,
Right, so we could submit that, I mean, and every consultant in the state that's involved with housing is working on this and offering to help and give you their template and all that too,
Yeah.
So,
Right. So there's other templates available, not just the state one.
I think, so, yeah,
Or
actually-
there will be, especially if the state looks like it's not going to get its act together.
exactly.
yeah. I got to say, I think the vote tonight should be the state template, and if we have to change that vote, then we have to change that vote, and it's going to be delayed. But it's sort of
Well, it can't be delayed or we missed the 24th.
I don't think we're gonna
No.
have, I'll check with Kristen, but I can't
Okay.
imagine they're gonna give us a hard time. This is something that they're all interested.
and it's out of our
Let's get it
hands. I
right.
mean, we're
Right. It's not like it's not like we're dragging our feet
mhm.
and not being prepared.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we should say the state template,
Well,
and
that
if
was-
not, we'll go to Plan B.
Yeah, well, that was the vote.
Yep.
The state template, so.
Yep.
We're covered by what we've done.
Aye,
Okay. I
We already eyed it.
did
Yeah.
we?
yep. And the eyes had it. I think.
I don't
Yes.
remember saying aye.
You did. What are
Did
you,
I?
forgetful?
I
I'm
think we
getting
got
old.
interrupted in the middle of voting.
Aren't we all?
Let's check the video.
All right, we beaten that horse?
No,
We
beat a
have.
horse.
He's limping away.
Okay,
Beat a horse, someone gets a video of it and they put it on YouTube and then you're.
Yeah.
We get the same issue though with moving on to this floodplain thing, and we should get our floodplain bylaw updated. And, you know, I've been waiting for the promised guide for municipalities about what our options are for, you know, making our floodplain bylaw different than the state. And that hasn't come either. That's been promised. That's been about a month late.
Okay.
We have to do the same thing there, unless Thomas wants to write our bylaw for us.
No, because I have an item I have to write that I'm going to talk about after this.
What do you mean? You were supposed to have distributed that so we could read it before the meeting.
Yeah, Jay, you saw that we will have spaces open to our floodplain model bylaw training scheduled for Thursday, February 13th. This training is being tailored for communities who recently received a letter of final determination. The training will cover all required bylaws that communities will need to adopt into their local floodplain regulations, if not adopted already, as part of having a compliant bylaw when the new floodplain maps become effective. Training is free and is being held online.
Right, but see, I got something even better than that. I got personal training
But that's your friend Katie.
from Katie, right? And so I have all the information required, I think, to write this. It's just the time to do it, you know.
Yeah. Can you forward me that February 13th and see if I can fit it into my schedule? Because, I could help you with that.
Right? Yeah, the other thing I have to do is write the annual report. I sent you all the stuff for that. Did you work on that?
Me?
Annual, I didn't
Yeah.
see anything on the annual report.
No, I sent it to Thomas because he offered to write it, and
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I
I will, yeah,
all
I'm
of the
sorry.
minutes.
I'm the chief regulatory counsel for our firm, and with the new regime, which is a spaghetti throwing machine, um, which some of which sticks, some of which is dropping off the wall because of judicial actions and so on. It's been an extraordinarily busy 2 weeks for me, so my apologies.
Well, I extracted all of the minutes for 2024 into one PDF.
Okay.
So, so if someone would want to write the annual report from that,
Okay.
I would put my time instead into the ADU bylaw and the floodplain thing.
No, that's fine. If I do it over this next weekend, we're still okay, right?
We're already after the date, so I don't know what.
Well, I can do it over the weekend. I'll look for your email. Okay.
All right. Well, that would help because that would free up time.
Yeah, I
So-
can do that.
I see a volunteer.
shall I make a motion that we submit a zoning bylaw change with the floodplain language that's been requested by or suggested and outlined by, is Katie the state? Or is she
Yeah,
FEMA?
can you
The
do
f-
her title? Actually, it was in the minutes last week.
Well, if she's with FEMA, forget it.
She's out of a job. That's why she
Exactly, she's
hasn't
furloughed.
responded.
Right. That's why she's not responding to us. And here it is here, Katie Page. Floodplain Management Specialist, Flood Hazard Management Program, Mass Department of Conservation and
Okay.
Recreation.
Okay. So she's still got a job. Yep.
Yeah. She's in a safe organization. Yep.
Okay.
So my motion would be, can people hear me? Because I get people breaking up.
Yep.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion would be to incorporate the language that's been suggested by the state that should go into our floodplain section of our bylaw, which if it means a complete deletion of what's there and an addition of entirely new language, that so be it, I guess.
Yeah, no, she did a nice job giving us specific red lines to modify with places where she said, you guys can decide this or this, right? Like the one we talked about requiring an engineer's stamp on certain drawings, things like that. So we could I could write a draft, I think, that would at least give us something to give the select board on 24th, and then we can use
Okay.
the time.
Okay. And I will write the annual report over the weekend and circulate it and then submit it with apologies that it's late.
All right. Is there a chicken suit or something involved in this?
No, contrary to what Joni thinks, I do learn from experience. That.
All right,
So-
well, with that topic, with that message on the table here, you were moving on to the part where we were going to see your draft MOU for.
Yeah, yeah,
Solomon Pond,
and
right?
I've already given my excuse, but let me say this. We need to get this in place. It's obviously not something that's affecting something that's coming tomorrow. So my aim at this point is to circulate it internally amongst the planning board by email before I leave for South Carolina on Wednesday of next week. People can look at it. People can, on a one-on-one basis, communicate with me about their thoughts about the text, suggested edits, and so on. I will not be here the next meeting, but let's put it on the agenda, and what I will submit for inclusion in the next agenda is what I give to you before next Wednesday, incorporating the changes that you suggest to me on a one-on-one basis in the interim. Okay?
Good.
Okay, so we'll put you on the agenda for
The first meeting in March, that would be.
not the
Mhm.
25th, it'll be the 11th, right?
Right.
Okay.
So did I make a motion in regard to the floodplain?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we have to vote on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll second Tim's motion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? No, then I'll ask you to vote. Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
Aye.
Thomas Andrew,
I
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries unanimous.
So do we want to chat about the mall issue a little more?
Yes,
Okay, so as you know, we've told Kristen that we don't anticipate putting an article on the warrant this time. Liz Kelly from the mall reached out to Kristen recently and said, how is Berlin doing with its zoning? Kristen reached out to Liz and included me and said she knew that we were waiting for word on our EEA grant and that one of the things we had talked about was including language about the mall, although she, at the end of her sentence, said, but there has been some discussion with Meredith, and there may be a goal to just have this letter of understanding, which we just talked about. So Kristen sent and said maybe the planning board wanted to talk to Liz. So I reached out to Liz today and I just told her what, we've been discussing, this notion that we wouldn't have anything zoning wise on the warrant this time around. And Liz said, in principle, that sounded reasonable. She feels that Meredith may have someone that's interested in the site, and that what we talked to Meredith about suits that purpose, because what we would then model for our zoning down the road for the fall or whatever could address the requests of that particular developer. And Liz is comfortable with the notion of treating the whole thing as one unit. It has to be comprehensive. She doesn't want to see piecemeal development no more than we do or Marlborough
And do
does.
you mean balkanization, Tim?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're all on the same page. She's going to meet with her counsel, I guess, later this week, and she was going to pitch that notion to them and get back to us essentially. And I said we were
Okay.
drafting a letter. I wasn't sure how far along we'd be. And she said, if you've got something that begins to get formulated, share it as soon as you feel comfortable. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do.
And I think, again, after given what I just suggested as the process, we ought to have something for our first meeting in March.
Yeah. And I think that I mean, it's good to keep Liz in the loop. I think it was also good for us to meet independently with Marlboro without Liz and them all at the table, because ultimately it's the two communities that are going to have to come up with an understanding zoning wise that works for both of us, regardless of, well, not regardless, but I mean, the mall has to be taken into consideration, but as a secondary player, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to create a structure that will deal with in an integrated way that will deal with any proposal that comes before us.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm putting together in the memorandum, and I have it outlined, as I say, the current regime is keeping me extraordinarily busy over the last couple of weeks.
So other than those two articles, the floodplain and the ADU, we don't anticipate anything else on the warrant, as I understand it,
No.
right?
Nope.
And I'll let Kristen know that for certain when I talk to her. And I'll explain that both are going to have modifications to the language and
Yeah.
significant review from town council, and there'll be a period where there's uncertainty longer than we'd normally find for, something that we'd want to put in, but that's just the way it is right now, so.
Yep.
And both are important to have on the town meeting warrant, so it's not like we're going to
Absolutely.
say we're going to wait until November,
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Has to be there.
Completely agree.
That's all I have, I think.
All right. Well, if there's something else, and I have to be in Boston at 7:00 tomorrow morning, I'd make a motion to adjourn, but certainly if anybody has anything else, I'm willing to defer that motion.
I will second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and it's not open for discussion. So I will ask you to vote by saying, "Oh, Canada."
Oh, Canada.
I, A,
Hey, Teach,
Aye.
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
Thomas Andrew.
But before I vote, you know how the name Canada came about? People
Uh-oh.
were discussing it and they said CANADA. Anyway, I vote aye. Anyway.
Carol McDonald,
I.
Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries unanimous.